Welcome back, everyone. It is a great pleasure for me to be able to introduce Dan Stewart, who is co-founder and CEO of Radio CO2. So we had the privilege of working with Dan and his team a couple of years ago on our Grand Scale Kickstart program. So that's a program specifically designed to upskill and empower ambitious spinouts to commercialize, launch, grow, and scale, and attract the investment that they need to fuel their spinout journey. So, sufficient to say that since we worked with Dan, incredible things have been created by Dan and his team. He's had a phenomenal journey over the past number of years, and there's much that we can learn from Dan and his experiences. So it's a really great opportunity, and I'd like to say thank you, Dan, to you to joining us today, taking the time to share your journey with the guys and important valuable tips and hints as to how to navigate the sometimes choppy seas of spinouts. So just to get us started, Dan, what does Viridi CO2 do, and what problem are you solving in the market?
Sure. And thanks for having me. It's kind of weird to think it was 2 or 3 years ago that we were doing the program, actually. Time flies when you're having fun, I guess they say. So yeah, what does Viridi CO2 do? Ultimately, Viridi CO2 was born from my PhD studies in chemistry. I focused on developing a chemical process to transform carbon dioxide really into anything useful is kind of how we defined it. And I was fortunate enough to discover a method of producing certain chemical ingredients that go into consumer goods directly from carbon dioxide. So ultimately, Viridi CO2 is commercializing and exploiting the discoveries of that PhD to deliver a solution to chemical manufacturers to enable them to use their waste emissions as a feedstock, a building block for the materials that we have around us every single day. The reason this is important is everyone sort of forgets that the chemical industry is the backbone of everything. Everything has some form of chemicals in it, whether it's your phone, your clothes, the foods you eat, in fact. They all have chemicals in it, your shampoo, your laundry detergent. And there's a huge sustainability impact on the world when we use these materials. So the chemical manufacturing industry needs solutions to reduce its CO2 footprint, use less energy, produce less emissions, be greener all round. And ultimately, Viridi CO2 is providing a solution to the industry for that.
Fantastic. What gave you the confidence to spin out?
I think confidence is a strange word to use in this context. What naivety? I think is possibly the best way of describing it. The reason we span Viridi CO2 out is because when you have a technology like we have, there is an element of responsibility. We were academics first. We developed a solution for the betterment of the planet ultimately. And when we have something that works as well as it does, the fastest way of delivering it to the planet is not through academia. Unfortunately, it is through making it profitable and delivering it as a business. And that's the reason why we chose to do it. Were we confident in delivering it? Yeah, I think we were confident in that we have the best solution in the world. And that's because we're the academics that discovered it. And you have to have that level of confidence in your own technology if you're going to run down the startup valley. But in terms of the confidence around business and the ability to execute, I guess you just kind of close your eyes and dive in.
Well,
Who knows?
I've heard that you cling on, white knuckle it quite a bit. And I think that for us, we know that we wanted to always work with innovation companies that had the potential, like yourselves, And like these guys here too, to be really impactful in the world, positively impact the planet and people's lives. We always want to do that. And we understand that when you come from academia, you probably haven't set foot in the commercial space, not too, So while you have oodles of expertise in terms of innovation and invention, the commercial side is potentially lacking. Those skills, the confidence, and that's why we do what we do. The spin out journey, there are key steps in spinning out. Can you explain what they are and any big turning points for you in your journey?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, it's a bit of a minefield, especially as you're coming from academia. The good news is there's plenty of people that have done it loads and loads and loads of times. As you say, you're here to help through that minefield. Um, One of the big important parts of our journey was the protection of our IP. So in the commercializations journey, you have to have something you can commercialize ultimately that someone can pay money for. And a lot of that involves the protection of your ideas, your products, etc. And so one of the biggest turning points was getting the patents filed for our technology. That was supported by our university. And once we had done so, we were confident enough that we could then exploit it ultimately. Then the actual process of forming a company, paying your well, in England, paying your £12 to HMRC and registering yourself as a director is very straightforward. And then building the team comes afterwards, getting investment. They're all sort of challenges in themselves, but the first steps essentially were getting the IP protected and getting the team behind it and having the passion to go ahead and jump into the unknown. I guess quitting academia was the big thing. Everyone says it's really hard to start something new, but actually the reality for me, the hardest thing was actually leaving the thing I was very cushy and comfortable in. So that was a really big step as well.
I think, yes, I can see that huge leap from where you're comfortable, where you've got a salary, you've probably worked, 7 years, you've got a PhD, so you've studied for like 7 years, you've grafted to get where you are, and to be able to go, okay, I've grafted and I'm now got the pinnacle of where I want to be, but the transition, it's like we know this from years ago, Dan. It was very much about the purpose and the why
Mm.
you exist, and the fact that you have uncovered such an invention that has such positive impact on our environment. There is a social responsibility there to actually bring it to market. So, and I think that the teams here feel that certainly as well. Where the business is today and the what are the key milestones that you've had to hit to get where you are today? Because I will let everyone know, Dan secured another significant round last week. Congratulations.
Thank
Um,
you.
it was never in doubt, Dan. I'm sure it was at some points, but um, it was never in doubt. You've got an incredible concept and an incredible team to realize your ambitions. But can you tell us about some of the kind of milestones along the way to getting that most recent investment? You were talking about, building teams and things like that. Some of those.
Yeah. What's most interesting is the milestones, you plot them out nice and linearly, right? In your Excel spreadsheet. Oh, I'm going to achieve this and then I'm going to achieve this. And that's never how it works. It's a roller coaster of things happening really quickly. You achieve loads and then you go loads of periods of time where it's just nothing feels like it's accelerating. And then another load come along. So I mean, the real sort of pinnacle bits are achieving technical milestones, which unlock kind of the next phase of commercials for us. So we made a kilo of our chemical technology in our own labs, having won a grant from the UK government. So that was huge. We did it early as well. We did it in 9 months rather than 12. That then unlocked an investment from EQT. So EQT, one of the world's sort of biggest venture capitalist firms. They have raised ridiculous amounts of money, and they gave me some in order to scale our business. And then most recently, yes, we've closed another investment round in order to grow a little bit further and support our supply chain endeavors. But that's come off the back of us signing our first two commercial offtake agreements of our technology. So we've now signed on the line to deliver tons of our technology within 3 years, which is crazy. And we're just unlocking the next phases of growth in doing all of this. So that investment round we just closed is only a small round comparatively, but it supports the next phase of work. So they're the kind of really big milestones, proving a big technical feasibility study with a key client, closing money, winning our commercial director and bringing them on board as another one. So we brought on a commercial director nearly 2 years ago, over 18 months certainly. Big name in the industry, 20 years experience, and he's trusted in me, in our vision, and he's come and joined us. So big milestones like that have been really key to where we are now.
So there's kind of milestones that are linchpins to the next stage. And what I'm hearing is that it's how you're scaling. So it's proving, I suppose it's that kind of traction that you're making. It's in terms of not only proving the concept, but also proving the product market fit as well with customer traction. Because indeed, with each of the milestones, you have to achieve a certain, whenever you're going for funding or investment, you're saying, like, if I have this funding, this is what we're going to achieve from it. But yeah, it's not linear. And it's a bit messy, and I'm hearing too that those kind of key hires as well are quite important. So you're looking at your product roadmap, you're looking at your team to be able to enable the further growth as well. Building the team. So how did you build the team, the early team? Because while you had a commercial director a couple of years, for the past couple of years, you certainly were founder sales back in the day, Dan. So let's go back in the day and how you built that, built your sales yourself, because that's where these guys are going to first, and also built out your team and capability.
Yeah, so I was really fortunate that just as we were spinning out and we got that government grant, there were two chaps who had previously worked with in my PhD group who graduated their PhDs and were looking for jobs. To the point where one of them actually said to me, if this goes anywhere, I want in. And I wrote him into the grant, so his salary was covered. And then one of the other guys said he wanted on board too. So from day one, I had two competent technical guys that I could just offload the entire technology onto, which meant I could focus on everything else. Now, don't get me wrong, I did not just focus on everything else. It was very hard to release the technology because it was ultimately my baby. But it's two guys who I could trust in, and they took it off me, and I focused on building the business, getting the investment, doing the sales, as you said, Ray. And then from there, it was just identifying what capability we needed when. So early doors, we were all very focused on one area of chemistry, and we were useless at the other side of chemistry, the application of our technology to make surfactants, for example, to make cleaning ingredients. So we went and found a couple of people who were pretty good at that. We hired them. We then had to close out the EQT investment round to give us the finances to do that. And from there, we could really grow technical across all areas. We brought in a project manager. We brought in an office manager full time. That unlocked our commercial director as well. And really just pinpointing what moves the needle the most in a hire at a given time. That was really important. You mentioned earlier about you have some money that unlocks the next bit of scaling, but what's actually really important for us, and I'm sure for everyone here, is identifying what you're trying to target in future and then working backwards from it. So we knew that we needed to close this investment round. In order to close that investment round, we had to have a certain number of commercial contracts. To get those commercial contracts, we needed someone really experienced in commercial. So we go and hire them. In the background, to make those things happen, we know we have to be able to deliver 10 kilos a week of our technology. Therefore, what investments do we have to make to deliver 10 kilos of technology per week? So rather than getting somewhere and moving forwards, we've actually gone forwards 18 months and worked backwards. And that way you can identify the holes in your team. So, for example, we know that next year we're going to go raise another 10 to 20 million as our Series A. We're probably going to need someone who's pretty good at finance to do that. So we know one of the hires in future is going to be a finance person. So we just work backwards from 18 months from now and work out the timings that way. And that's how we've kind of done it with everyone in the team, really.
Yes, we were actually talking about that because in terms of the Ignite program itself, we're looking at validating your concept in the market, but we're also looking at your route to market, which is what we're touching upon today and the next couple of weeks. And then we're also looking at your investment path. So what we're trying to do is not only be able to validate that it is has commercial validity, but also has a big opportunity, particularly because we know investment is going to be a feature, especially for spinouts. So the guys are going through this path at the moment, and it's the last module we're going to be looking at is investment. Funding and investment, the non-dilutive funding, first and foremost, that you have obviously availed of.
Very important.
Yes, crucially important. But also that private equity and the VC funds and such. So we are looking at the whole journey, and what we're trying to do, what we talked about today was you need to know your route to market to be able to determine what your ask is going to be. How are you going to get to market, and what are the building blocks that you need, and the investment, the associated financial investment that you need to be able to get there, so that then you can unlock the next stage. So it's the real life example that you're explaining of what we had kind of touched upon today. Mm-hmm. You have been super duper busy closing the significant investment rounds as you go. So investment is part of probably that keeps you awake as well, Dan, because it's never ending, it's relentless. It's always going to be there. So can I delve into that a little bit more? How did you initially fund the spin out? It was through the grant. It was through that non-dilutive funding. What worked or what didn't work in those kind of early conversations with funders? What advice would you have given yourself and indeed these guys at that early stage?
Yeah, so for the non-dilutive funding, it very much depends on the kind of funding you're applying to. The funds will always have a set of criteria that makes them excited, basically, the things that they're looking for. So understanding what that is and then writing your grant to those sort of criteria is really important. And with these types of grants, there's always a big focus on the commercials, and everyone forgets about that. Because ultimately, if the UK government is giving you money, it's because it wants you to be a successful business that makes money, ultimately, or any government that is. So ultimately, the technology is not the most important bit. And if you're coming from an academic background, it's really easy to get lost in that. So you just think you've got the best technology in the world, but if you can't commercialize it and you can't prove your business model, you're going to go nowhere, unfortunately. So make sure you pay particular attention to the criteria of those grant calls. When you start talking about early sort of investment opportunities, that is dilutive, like angel investors, because we secured our grant and then we got angel investment as well. I think one of the key things there is you don't know everything. And if you try and pretend you know everything, you're going to get found out. And you just look like an idiot. So passion for what you're trying to do, why you're the best person to deliver it where you are, acknowledging that you don't know everything, but have a plan to find out how you're going to go get the info. That's critical. Angel investment and early stage VCs are backing you, not the technology. Your ability to build a team to deliver. The technology is kind of a given if you're coming from an academic background because you're deemed to be a smart cookie, so you should be able to work it out. But authenticity, being genuine, passionate, those are sort of the key things to keep in mind when you're pitching, for example, for money.
Brilliant advice. Yes, because if you think about it, angel investors are maybe looking at 3 different technologies that are in and around the same space. So the differentiator is going to be the founder and the teams, of course. So talking about the kind of the more on the signs of traction, what were your first thoughts about getting sales traction? How did you go about that? Was it scary in the first instance, and how did you get over that?
Yeah, so I mean, going out and talking to people who you don't know about your technology is scary for those who haven't really done that before. I was really fortunate because I worked in recruitment for a year before my PhD. So cold calling and picking up the phone actually wasn't too much of a big deal for me. Um, Things to understand is you're going to get it wrong. You're going to get the pitch wrong. You're not going to sell it right first time, and that's okay because you use these experiences to learn and refine your pitch, and then you nail it. Just make sure you practice on the ones that are your less important. Would be a key bit of advice I'd give. Don't screw up the really big opportunity first. In terms of like getting the traction and what does traction look like, people signing an NDA with you feels great to begin with, but it means nothing. People are very keen to talk about new sexy technologies because it's interesting, all right? But real sales traction and understanding what that is vital to being successful. For us, people paying to trial our technology. We have not done a single trial for free. And it's simply because we think we're worth the money to start with. But also, if people pay money, they're invested. So they have skin in the game. They have to kind of justify why they've spent some money on your technology. And so they usually come through with the results. If people just get it for free, it's not really a priority. And that's not really traction. It's hard to justify that to your board of directors if they're not going to move forwards with it, kind of thing. So that's what early traction looked like for us. We had people willing to put a little bit of money towards these samples, and we're charging nothing really. It's just a small amount of money, sundry amounts, doesn't cover our costs, but it's proof that people are willing to put us in their SAP systems ultimately. And then those contracts get bigger and bigger and bigger. The trials get bigger. You get invited to their sites. You start talking what proper contracts look like. Yeah, that they were the early signs of traction that we achieved.
Yes, because now investors, we've heard that letters of intent aren't as don't carry as much weight as they used to, and it really is cash is king.
Yeah,
Um,
very much so. LOIs aren't legally binding.
yeah.
Having an agreement that says you have to pay for this regardless of whether you take it or not, and it's worth $250,000, that's what investors hang their hats on. So that's
Well, we
what
mightn't get
matters.
$250,000 down at the start, but we're not going to get $250,000 at the start. But if we always say you're not a business unless you have a paying customer. That's the fact of the matter. Some really good advice there. Some of the other kind of questions, communicating. You were talking about. You did have a good internship. Recruitment. I don't often like taking calls from recruitment, cold calls. So that was really good. That was a really good induction into cold calls. You're out and about in the sector quite a bit these days. You were in Dusseldorf recently, and you posed the question, did you know you can fight climate change with washing dishes? Now that's some way to get attention, and I liked it. Dan, what I want to ask is that in terms of net zero, it's often misunderstood outside of academia. Being able to translate the technology into meaningful content for commercial individuals, albeit that they may be from a technical background as well. How do we translate the innovation into that kind of value proposition? Any tips, stories that you have around that would be great.
Yeah, I think I'd almost challenge what you're saying to a point though, because I think it's also misunderstood in academia.
Mm.
So net zero, everyone understands the concept, but I'd be lying if I said I understood the full supply chain that is involved in delivering our technology when I was building the case for Viridi CO2. It's only when you start talking to every stakeholder in the supply chain do you actually begin to understand the real challenge behind net zero. Because your technology might be great. We're using CO2 from the atmosphere to make consumer products. That's great, but there's an awful lot of other aspects that are not necessarily understood or obvious until you speak to those stakeholders. So the key thing out there is to get talking to everybody. We go to these trade shows, we get involved with government events, everything in order just to talk to everybody and understand what their challenges are with net zero and how you tie into it. And it's only when you have like the full holistic view of what's going on and what is important to everybody that you can really design your value proposition to deliver onto it. So we thought that the big energy saving in running our chemical process at a lower temperature was the biggest plus. And actually, it turns out that there isn't that much saving to be made there because chemical plants are just so efficient at heat transfer anyway. The biggest thing is about reducing the time that their reactors run for so they can get an extra batch in. So they can actually get more batch time per time period. And that's a whole new batch of product. And we didn't realize that at the time. And actually, then we're putting 2 lots of CO2 in because we've run an extra batch. So without understanding what that looks like, you have to sort of really go and challenge your assumptions because you're only as good as your assumptions, and if you don't trial them, then you're not going to be able to get the full picture.
Mm-hmm. We have talked at length about assumptions, and we have talked at length about getting your hypotheses and being able to experiment on that. And that's what the guys are going to be doing over the coming months. I love the advice that you have to actually look wider across the supply chain. And we have challenged our teams to have 50 conversations at this early stage. And it could, in the different market segments that are open to them, to be able to determine the most lucrative market that they go for first, their beachhead market. You'll know this from Kickstart days. This is what we talked about then. Really narrowing the focus and being laser focused on your customer segment, but really understanding that we're not working in a vacuum. There's environmental forces at play as well. One of the things that I did want to ask you about is, have there been anything in the macro environment around regulations or legal or that have impacted you in either a positive way, giving you an opportunity, or a threat that you had to manage?
Yeah, this is an interesting one because actually the regulatory field has helped us, which we didn't expect. So there was a change in chemical legislation in the US first, which has then come into Europe. That's a very odd way round for it to happen because it's usually
Usually
EU,
the other,
then
yeah.
US. Anyway, it controls a specific side product in the chemical products that are produced, and it just happens to turn out that our technology makes or meets that criteria more readily than the existing technology, and we didn't know that. So the regulatory field has actually aided us because nothing makes businesses move faster other than making more money or suddenly being like not meeting regulations or legislations. They're the two things that make businesses move fastest. So that's helped us. But in terms of more general macro environments, fundraising last year was awful. The markets were horrible to try and operate in. We were looking to a number of investors, and they simply just weren't investing because there was so much uncertainty. And that's something completely out of our control. You cannot control that, and you have to put your energy in places where ultimately you can control it. So it can go both ways, and largely both of them are out of your control. You've just got to work out how you pivot and navigate your way through it.
Brilliant. One of the questions that I have is about your Kickstart experience. So, how do you reflect on the Kickstart experience at that earlier stage? What was the most valuable aspect of that commercial training that you got then?
Yeah, so it's put us in very good stead moving forwards, obviously, because we're sort of crushing our commercials at the moment. We're demonstrating exponential revenue growth, which is most important for a high growth business like us. In terms of the sort of the key take homes for me, it was always about the messaging and the development of the different parts of your funnel, right? Trying to get someone in, get them interested, and then actually getting into a deeper technical conversation, and then really nailing what it is you are selling to them and why it's important to them. So the funnel, and that's particularly important for us because really we sell to chemical manufacturers. There's only sort of 25 of them in the world. They are huge corporate multinationals. If we get 2 contracts with the biggest in the world, we're $1 billion company. So we can't afford to screw that up because if we lose one, we lose a really significant part of our potential revenue. So that was a key sort of take home, and I think we're doing pretty good off the back of that. So,
well, I think you're doing an exemplary job. So well done on that. Let's look, finally, let's look ahead. What's next for Viridi CO2 and what keeps you motivated? Because it isn't easy being a leader in the spin out space. It's not. What is it? What's next and what keeps you motivated?
yeah, and you're right. It is hard, but we get to celebrate these really big wins from time to time, which keep us pushing forward, right? We've just signed 2 really big commercial offtake agreements, so we're focusing on the delivery of those. I can't give too much away because a lot of it is confidential. But Viridi CO2 was built to deliver CO2 versions of consumer goods, and I really hope soon we're going to be building towards a first commercial product you can buy in the supermarket that contains our technology. Now, you wouldn't know that it does, but there will be a
I will
product on
know.
the
You
shelf.
will tell me, Dan. I will buy it on a weekly basis. Don't worry about that.
Thank you, and so will I.
We
But
all commit to supporting it, Dan.
yeah, so it's going to be made of CO2. Like we could be washing our hair with CO2 or washing the dishes with CO2, as our very ballsy slogan
I
said.
you got my attention with that question. I was like, what's he talking about? Washing dishes and I can save the planet. Oh, okay. That makes washing dishes all the more attractive to me. We will look forward to hearing the inside skinny as and when you can share it, Dan, and we will share that widely across our social networks. Congratulations, huge congratulations on your success, not least on the investment side, the commercial side, building your team, and just being a phenomenal Kickstart graduate. I would jump in, Dan, and just say thank you so much for the conversation today. I think it's been so insightful for the teams, and obviously you've went through this journey that they're looking ahead at. Looking back, what advice would you have given yourself, or what would you share with the team that has been a nugget that really has helped you along your journey? And we know it's a roller coaster. So what would you have loved to have heard back 3, 4 years ago that would have helped you in your commercialization journey and your spin out journey?
Yeah, I think I get asked this a lot, and my answer changes depending on what mood I'm in.
Well, you're in good form because you've just raised, but it is a challenging experience, and we're pushing everybody out of their comfort zone, out of academia life. So,
Mhm.
back then, what would you have loved to have heard that would have helped you?
Yeah, I think the main thing is you can't do it all yourself, quite simply. You might have invented the technology, you might be the genius behind the software, um, but you cannot build a deep tech scaling sustainable business by yourself, no matter how much your ego tells you you think you can. So you need to find people that do the things that you're not good at. And that's the best way for success. So find out what you're not good at and get someone in who's good at it. And don't feel bad about being bad at something. Like we can't be good at everything. The sooner you do that, the better. I was okay at sales. I got people in. We got our early LOIs and things like that. We paid for someone to come in who's got 25 years experience in chemicals, and now we've just signed our first six-figure kind of sales contract, and that's because he's good, way better at it than I am. So,
He has the
um,
25 years on you. Don't worry about it. Don't take it bad,
but
Dan. Plus, he has the network as well, and
yeah,
he has the trust already built up. Um, but you had to do the finding sales at the start, and there, um, you don't have the network, you don't have the credibility as such. You have to build that out, and you've done it remarkably well, Dan. Thank you again so much for your time, your insights, and your generosity in sharing them with the teams today. I know that you're all the richer for it, folks. And I wish you well in the future endeavors. Please let me know what brand of shampoo slash washing up liquid I need to buy going forward. As and when you can divulge that, I will tell the world to buy it too.
I like, believe me, I think you're gonna know because we'll have screamed it from the highest mountain on LinkedIn and social media. You'll know. But no, thank you very much for having me. Good luck, everyone. It's tough, but you get to enjoy seeing your technology growing and the team you're building. So stick at it. It is good fun.